Whoa!
Hey.
Welcome to the Star Wars Reporter Podcast. I am Boba Steve for this special edition of Star Wars Reporter. We're going to be looking at, obviously, the new trailer for the Book of Boba Fett. So I thought I would dress accordingly. Everything around me, I'm trying to get as much Boba Fett as I can around. Coffee mugs, the whole bit.
I didn't realize Boba Steve was going to be here. I would have dressed accordingly.
I see you now. So thanks to everyone who is joining us in the chat right now. This was a lot harder to see than I thought, but before we get started, just want to make sure everyone is subscribed to the YouTube channel. Make sure you share and get the word out. And of course, hop on over to StarWarsReporter.com for all the latest in news. And of course, you can subscribe to us on social media. And I think I'm going to pass out. This is like wearing a mask.
Yeah,
I'm like,
you sound like you're in deep space or in an undersea dive, perhaps.
I'm just hoping that people are listening to the dancing Ewok. Okay.
Hundreds of subscribers, unlike us.
Hey, everyone loves the Ewoks. There is not one person that's going to unsubscribe to us.
Right.
So like I said, topic for today, Book of Boba Fett. We just got a trailer and poster art and other images yesterday. So it's kind of exciting, right? And you know, sometimes the rumors are right. You know, kind of the rumor mill on Twitter posts that I read were that it was going to come out November 1st, and I ignored that. And
Yeah.
I just happened to be doing some work, and I had YouTube up, and I seen the notification from the official channel. I was like, oh my god. And then I got that press release through the email, and I was like, bam, right on it. So exciting time. So again, first of all, I'll just introduce to everyone here tonight. You could tell there's a lot of people not here, but hey, everyone say hello to Jason.
What's going on, everybody? It is good to see you guys. And yeah, it should be fun. Just going over this trailer and talking about things to come.
Yeah. It's going to be, I'm really looking forward to it. This series as a whole, like, you know, from some of the things that the creators are saying, it's going to be like, you know, so much more in depth or so much more action than what we've seen in The Mandalorian, and pretty much The Mandalorian has energized the Star Wars fandom. So yeah. So if they come through with it, it'll be awesome.
It's cool because, you know, you think The Mandalorian, you know, has been so cool in itself, but with things like that, just as important as the show itself, it's now laid a foundation. It's laid the groundwork. It's you know, given a path for shows after it to follow it now. You know, because now they're going to feel like, well, you know, you got to kind of live up to what The Mandalorian's done. And not just so much live up to it and that, oh, it's so awesome. Well, that too. But
Right.
it's kind of, it's laid, you know, the groundwork for this is how you can do it. And,
Right.
you know, with Boba Fett, now, as I understand too, Boba Fett's continuing. Boba Fett's basically season 3 of The Mandalorian, really.
Or The Mandalorian season 3.
Obviously, we're going, you know, steering it towards Boba Fett, but it's going to go forward right from the end of The Mandalorian, except, you know, with Boba Fett, we're steering off into Boba Fett land for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But I think even the first episode is even considered episode 17, if I'm not mistaken. I think they're calling it that.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's very cool.
Maybe somebody watching this can even confirm that, but I'm pretty sure that, yeah, Boba Fett's really it's basically the Mandalorian season 3, just concentrating on the different character.
Right,
But,
right. Yeah. Well, hey, why don't we take a look at the trailer, and then we'll come back and we'll discuss it. All right.
Cool.
So, trailer for Book of Boba Fett.
I am not a bounty hunter. I've heard otherwise. I know that you sit on the throne of your former employer. Jabba ruled with fear. I intend to rule with respect.
You were all once captains under Jabba the Hutt.
I'm here to make a proposal that's mutually beneficial. Why speak of conflict when cooperation can make us all rich?
What prevents us all from killing you and taking what we want?
If you had spoken such insolence to Jabba, he'd have fed you to his menagerie.
Please, speak freely.
Oh, all right. So
that was cool too, because not overdone. Like, you know how we always talk about with movies and everything these days. You know, I mean, it's always been the trailers just they give like way too much.
yeah,
And this trailer just kind of gave you the seeds of what might be happening, which I like. It did not show too much, but certainly showed enough, you know, to get you interested and give you a little bit of the style. So I like that trailer. It was just enough. It was a little more than a teaser almost to me, but not quite. Like, I like what they did with that trailer.
I get the feeling, and I said this to you before we went live, that everything we see here is probably happening in the first episode. So they kind of, you know, give us, which is good. They give us almost nothing, and I've seen a lot of people kind of complain about that, right? Like, I was listening to another podcast, and they were kind of like, "Oh, we needed more," right? Like, they want to see more action and stuff, but subtle. Just don't spoil too much, and I think they showed us just enough. So
the fact that you're saying that, you know, or somebody would say that, and no disrespect to, you know, everybody has their opinion, and that's fine. You wanted to see more. I get it.
mm-hmm.
But I think it's cool because everybody who says that, you can damn well be sure they'll be tuning in. You know, it made you want to see more of it and more action and all that. So for sure.
Yeah, I think this is just a continuation from the Mandalorian, right? Like, kind of that quality OG Star Wars that we're used to, right? So much practical special effects and atmosphere, and again, the broken record that I am, that whole underworld that I love so much.
Yes. Yep. No, I know. It's like you've been asking for that forever.
I know.
And that's a whole thing with this, which is really, really interesting, you know, to get right into it with the underworld and like the hierarchy.
Right.
Now, Jabba the Hutt had his ties to a lot of the, obviously, you know, the Star Wars underworld, and I'm trying to remember now more of his story with like the Black Sun and Crimson Dawn and like this, like what we saw like with Han Solo, all the syndicates and all the different factions and such, which had
Right.
far-reaching arms in the Star Wars galaxy. We didn't see too much of that in the movies, but we did get a lot of it in the books, and that was kind of one cool thing about Solo. You know, we got that. So when you take that Jabba the Hutt and that, you know, and then his underling, you know, Bib Fortuna out of the picture, and then Boba Fett just seats himself on that throne, you can picture everyone as like, well, wait a minute, who the hell are you?
Right.
And that's what I'm curious about. Now, we all, you know, love the character and a lot of the mystery of the character, and then a lot of things that we've learned from the prequels and the Clone Wars and stuff like that. But still, you know, you got to wonder, like, okay, that's why they show at the table, you know, all the different characters who are the captains, as he said, of Jabba the Hutt, and it's like, you know, they all have to be. Yeah, there he goes on the.
Well, I got
throne.
the.
It's just a cool shot. And a
Sorry,
Thorian.
I had it. But there we go.
Yeah, there we go.
So, yeah, all the captains, right? All of the captains that used to work for Jabba are now going to work for him, which is, I mean, this whole thing to me, it feels like it's going to go down as a Godfather story.
We don't know who's going to work for him yet, though. I mean, he called that meeting perhaps that we're seeing together, but even the one guy at the end of the table is like, well, why don't we just kill you? You know? So who
But that's
knows,
always like that whole, for anyone that's seen The Godfather, any gangster movie, that's the whole thing, right? They're kind of like, there's now a fight for who's going to be in control of the syndicate or the crime family. And there's always that nice calm meeting before the storm, which is, you know, what some of the criticism of not seeing a lot of Boba Fett smashing skulls like he did in The Mandalorian. But it's like, it's the calm before the storm. It's like, work for me. No? Okay. Then it's like all mayhem will break free. Because I think the fear, and I was fearing it too, is that they were going to soften Boba Fett, right? Make him like the reluctant hero, kind of like the Mandalorian, right? Mandalorian was, you know, hard-ass bounty hunter, and then the child softened him up and he became a nice guy helping people. But I don't think they're going to do that with this.
No, because the people that he's involved with, that he's trying to get together, it's like that's, you know, a bunch of bad people in control of bad people doing bad things.
Yeah. And, you know, the one quote that I really love is again, it's going to set a tone for the show, right? This quote here from Jabba, or from Boba, right? Jabba ruled with fear. I intend to rule with respect. But, you know, he's going to demand respect or else. And I just think it's that kind of like, you know, again, the Godfather thing. He's just like not talking with the, you know, he's not doing the Godfather thing, but that, you know, that's what he is, like a syndicate, just like what's his name in the Solo movie, right? It was that whole feel.
Yeah. I'm just really curious with all that, like how he's gonna convince, because that line that you say, and it's interesting, he's not gonna rule with fear but with respect. But you have to earn that. You have to earn that respect.
Yeah.
And how does just him and Fennec, two very formidable characters,
right?
But how does Boba Fett just get that respect? And it's like, is there going to be, you know, while that scene is going on, is he going to have underlings out there assassinating?
Right.
Or
well, right now it's just the two of them, right? It's him and Fennec, and he's got to build. I think he's got to build his alliance. He's got to start, you know, like that, you know, kind of the new guy in school. He's got to find the biggest bully and punch him out.
Right. Well,
and
again, that's
himself again.
That's what I'm getting at is he just sat himself in Jabba's palace.
Yeah.
And he's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. And he's sitting there in the throne. And it's like, well, it takes more, something else is going to have to happen.
Right.
So he's saying, I'm going to rule, with respect, not fear. But is that going to be possible? Did something happen before that scene? Even if those guys don't know about it, did he assassinate somebody big? Or did he orchestrate sneakily something to happen that legitimizes him sitting there? Because I'm just saying, he just took that throne.
Right.
He can't just sit there and say, work for me. He's going to have a really, really good reason.
It felt to me that when at the end, where he goes in and shoots Bib and just sits on the throne and is assumed to have taken back the Jabba's palace. It seems to me that for Bib to be sitting on that throne, maybe things weren't so good for kind of Jabba's former rule, because Bib doesn't seem like such a tough guy. So maybe it was in disarray. So it was easy for Boba just to come blast Bib and then sit down on the throne and be done with it. And again, he's got to prove himself because, I bet you most people thought he had died. Well, Bib Fortuna thought he had died, at the Sarlacc pit. So he's got to reestablish himself, because I'm sure a lot of people are going to say, nah, Boba Fett died. Are you kidding me? That's what we heard. And he's going to have to prove himself or reestablish, say, hey, I'm not dead. This is me. So
see, and that's exactly what I'm wondering, though. Like, what does he do to legitimize him sitting on that throne to everybody else who's probably been out there in the galaxy and doing their dealings and all that? And they themselves probably wondering, or even thinking for themselves, who's going to take Jabba's place. So I'm wondering, is Boba Fett going to do a show of power that went beyond anything we saw in the trailer? Or did he assassinate or do something? Because I'm thinking that line, not out of fear, but respect, it could end up being ironic, because he may very well have orchestrated something that was extremely fearful. But now if everybody just falls in line, you'll have my respect. But we'll see.
Yeah. And you could tell, in the trailer where he's saying, how he's going to rule, it doesn't seem that Fennec is totally on board with the tactic that he's going to use, right? Like before, Boba Fett was just vicious, right? He would just, shoot first, ask questions later, maybe, and he was just brutal. And I think that in the years that he's been without his armor and, wandering around on Tatooine or wherever, I think he's grown a little bit, where maybe he knows, maybe his wings were kind of clipped a little bit, and maybe he's getting his confidence back again, because now he's got his armor, he's Boba Fett again. And I just think that maybe he's older and wiser. So he's like, you know what? I just can't go blasting around the galaxy anymore. I'm going to need more of a base. I'm going to need more allies if I want to continue doing this. And he probably has a lot of enemies too, right? Once they realize he's not dead, I bet you a lot of people will be out for him anyways.
Right. Well, yeah. And to your point, one of the first things in that trailer, I'm not a bounty hunter. It kind of establishes that he's not a bounty hunter anymore, which is like a lowly thing, probably at this stage in his life. And just what you're saying, like, he's been through a hell of a lot, and his aspirations now, he survived, and he's an older guy, and, much higher aspirations, obviously, as he's sitting in Jabba's throne. So just a mere bounty hunter, it's nothing.
Right. Yeah. And some of the, just want to go over some of the parts. I keep pulling up the pictures, but just the different aspects of the shots that I took of the trailer. We'll have a look at it. Like, we start off with this palace, right? So he's kind of moved in, And then I want to make this comment, and I'm kind of made it as a joke. I'm not one to talk, but it looks like Boba's been doing some sit-ups since Mando. Because he's lost. It looks to me like you can even see it in his head,
Right.
that he's lost a lot of weight.
Yeah.
So, which is weird because I'm sure that Dave and John didn't, like I know them, that Favreau and Filoni didn't just call him up and say, "Hey, we want to film next week and bring Boba Fett back in. Hey, do you want to show up?" So I was kind of shocked that they didn't say, "Okay, so in a year from now, we're going to bring you into the show. So can you do some sit-ups?" So, which is weird. And maybe that was purposeful, right? That was like showing how out of sorts maybe Boba was, right? And then now you see fit Boba. So that's kind of cool, right? So one of the things that you and I were talking about, I was kind of asking about this. I'm like, is this on Tatooine? This can't be. Is it Mos Eisley, or is it another city on Tatooine? But then, not, I think he's trying to reestablish himself, and Jabba's syndicate's probably all over the place, even on Coruscant. So maybe they're just like, the series is going to also have them going off at Tatooine. Obviously, that'd be kind of boring. So I'm not sure your thoughts on that.
Well, yeah, I mean, with the people he's dealing with, I mean, they're galaxy wide, or at least outer rim.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're talking to different syndicates and all that. Like I was saying before, they've got their hands sneakily all over the galaxy of Star Wars. So
Right.
it could be eventually galaxy spanning, perhaps, unless they do want him as sort of the king, where Jabba was, to be mostly centralized there to control the center of power there, if that's, what it remains. So it's a good question. It's very intriguing. Could we see like Fennec race off to another part of the galaxy to do his bidding?
Right.
Will we see scenes of rival factions?
Right. Which is, getting into that, right? Where you see him at least doing that whole Godfather sit down and give them an offer they can't refuse, right?
I can picture him maybe planted there, but while other goings on that he's commissioned, take place in other parts of the galaxy. As far as that shot, the city shot, I mean, it looks very Tatooine-ish.
Right.
I don't think, I mean, if it is Mos Eisley or Mos Espa, I don't think I've seen them portrayed like that large and in a crater like that.
Yeah.
And, plus you see more establishments and civilization on the edge of those craters, and it just looks too massive to me.
Yeah. It can't be Jeddah, because that's gone.
Right. And whereas, and ironically, Jeddah was up.
Right.
Jeddah was up on the plateau, and this is like a sunken. It's really cool. Like maybe it's the largest city on Tatooine that we haven't seen yet, or something. But
right. Sorry, I just wanted to go back to this picture here. I was making the comments that it looked like that Boba's been doing some sit-ups since Mando. It looks like the Gamorreans have also been doing some sit-ups. Maybe they're doing the same workout program, because it's funny how they've gone to the thin Gamorreans, right?
They are slimmer, much slimmer. Yeah.
It's funny. Good. It's good. So, and it's so funny. We're wondering if this city is on Tatooine, right? But part of the trailer, right, we get to see the Tuskens, the Sand People again, which is pretty cool. I think the Mandalorian really, I liked how they kind of established them in the Mandalorian as not, because we've never seen them not attacking or
just
blind rage.
We actually saw them as like a tribe of people, really,
right. Like that one episode where Mando and that wannabe bounty hunter guy that was going to betray him were kind of in the sand, and the Sand People just appeared behind them. I think Mando heard them coming, but and then how they did the whole sign language talk was very cool.
Perhaps, and maybe this is a stretch, maybe Boba Fett, maybe that's one of the first things he does, or even before meeting with all the ex-captains, is get himself some backup, some sand people power, or provides them, says, look, hang out with me, or guard the palace, and I'll provide you with goods and food, and or that's a stretch. I have no idea, but perhaps I think it would be smart to ally himself with the locals around.
But what about this? What if this, because they can't just jump into it, right? We have to have some kind of like explanation for what happened at the Sarlacc pit. And what if, because I know in the comic, there was a comic I had when I was a kid, and it was where the Sarlacc spit Boba Fett out. He landed on the edge, and then along comes these sandcrawler with the Jawas, and they take him. For some reason in the comic, they were like, oh, he's like a droid, so they throw him in the back, and he's kind of like groggy and has he has amnesia. And at some point, Han and Leia run into him again, but he doesn't remember them, but they know who he is. And at a certain point, he remembers at some moment where Han is holding him from falling down a pit again or something. And he's like, oh, you're Han. He goes to shoot him, so Han lets him go, and he falls to his death again. And I'm just wondering if they go down a similar path for how Boba Fett got out of the Sarlacc pit, but he was found and discovered by Tuskens. This is them coming to the Sarlacc pit because, that big Jabba's a little ship there blew up, and I'm sure a lot of the local, the sand people, whoever in the area, were like, what's that noise? Investigate it. Maybe they found Boba and nursed him back. Maybe after the Jawas stole the armor off of him, left him for dead. And
that's
then,
a great idea.
Because he was bashing those stormtrooper skulls, right? What was he using? He was using a gaffy stick.
Huh.
So I think maybe because he was just wandering around the desert freely. You don't do that on Tatooine because of these guys.
That's a great thought. And what's funny is you just actually did a better job, a more reason of explaining what I was sort of getting at. But I didn't think of that. No, but saying that he allied himself with the sand people, and then of course, he had the gaffy stick. And what you're saying is actually a great thought, that they could have come upon him and maybe even like rescued him. Maybe even rescued him like not long after. But he was so messed up that he was, he kind of hung out with them for years or whatever.
But he had lost everything too. He lost his armor. He had lost. His career was with Jabba, and he's lost his armor. He's probably he was wounded pretty bad. You could see the scarring.
But that's great what you said, though, the progression where the Jawas, the scavengers,
because they had his armor.
They would have been on site quickly. That's a good point. After Jabba's barge, that was like a huge battle and explosion, and I mean that's like finding gold, like a vault. Jabba's barge and all the stuff, and those skiffs, and just and probably some decent amount of wealth on those barges.
Definitely.
I mean, the barges for the Jawas, that would have been the find of their lives. So that's a great point, that Jawas were on the scene, and then thereby afterwards you had sand people on the scene not long after, who came upon, perhaps even for whatever reason, rescued Boba or found him, crawled out of the pit. But absolutely.
I think that there's going to be a connection there, because they kind of, Mando for some reason had that where they just weren't attacking him on sight. Maybe it's like they have some kind of knowledge or relationship with the Mandalorians somehow. But for sure, this is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that Boba Fett survives, obviously, the Sarlacc pit. He's out on the side. Jawas come along. They're scavenging. They see him. He's they're like, he's dead. We're going to take this armor. It ends up with the Marshal on that one episode. And then as he's laying there, the Sand People come up. They find Boba Fett, and they rescue him. And that explains him, like I said, wandering around the desert freely. He's kind of got those kind of robes. They're not tan like that, but he's also fighting with a gaffy stick like a pro. And I noticed that. I know the gaffy sticks are like, it's Tatooine. They're probably everywhere, somewhere, right? People probably found them or whatever else, but it just seems to make a lot of sense that's what they're showing you here. All in the first episode. The entire trailer is going to be a quick explanation, maybe, and then they just move on with the story. Or this is what I'm thinking. It could even be this scene here, where he gets his helmet. It just seems like he's thinking. You're right. They're going to probably have a lot of him thinking back to these things, right?
Well, I was just going to say, like, everything we're saying, everything your ideas there. This is the Book of Boba Fett. This is the chance, if ever Star Wars was going to delve back into exactly what happened, the things we're talking about. This is the chance. Oh, and there are our countrymen there. Todd will, yeah,
Todd,
absolutely. But this is the chance to do that flashback. We've all been wondering exactly what the hell happened, and I think what we're talking about is pretty solid, probably pretty close. But this is our opportunity. This is the Book of Boba Fett. This is him right there on the scene, Jabba's palace, close to where all of this happened. And like you said, they're showing the Sand People, the Tusken Raiders, and that very well could be a shot of them, back a few years when they initially found him. That's a great idea. Why not? This is the opportunity right now to put all of that stuff to bed, like exactly what happened to him. But I love that. Right. I think that's great. And this is the Book of Boba Fett, so we can go to different chapters.
Right.
And the show may very well start. I think that would be cool if they actually started, like, it's all like a sandstorm and eerie music, and it kind of chills out and you see the Sarlacc pit, it's all quiet or whatever. Like, they could start the show like that as like the prologue to it, and then lead up to, him in the throne or whatever. Not, it doesn't have to be in the throne, right. but the current present day.
Yeah. It's just how much, it'd be interesting to see how much of those last events from, the beginning of Return of the Jedi, we're going to see that whole incident, him thinking back. He's like, I had that little blonde guy lined up while he was beating everyone up on the other skiff. Next thing I know, I'm head first into Jabba's barge. And, I blacked out, and the rest is history. It's like, as people would say, it was like,
that's
as I was getting ready to shoot, I went out like a bitch, is what I keep hearing about Boba Fett, right? So,
and something that Todd would probably appreciate too, from like a filmmaking standpoint, and which I wouldn't put it past the way they've been doing The Mandalorian and all this. We could even see that. We could even see his perspective. We might even get a little bit of Return of the Jedi from a different camera angle, more from his perspective even. We could even see that moment where he falls down into the Sarlacc. He's like, oh, when he goes in there. Who knows, but it's definitely, this is the time. If you're ever Star Wars, whether it's novels or comic books, anything, right? Yeah. If there's ever a time to show, okay, what the hell happened to Boba Fett?
Exactly. Make it not so, because that's what everyone says, right? The whole thing is, who was saying that? It was James, I think, in the chat. I was talking to him, and he was like, yeah, I'm looking forward to this series, but I'm not a Boba Fett fan because I don't get it. Like, he gets too much hype for nothing. And it's sort of true. He looks really cool, and maybe a lot more happened in comics and books with him. and Lucas never capitalized on the popularity or the the what could have been with him. But yeah, you're right. This is exactly a time.
This is the core reason. And now that like we're old now, and this is a perspective of older people, 77 people.
Listen up, kids.
Yes, because no, it's totally legit. Everyone, a lot of fans now, and anybody younger than us even, like, why is Boba Fett such a big thing? Here's the thing that not a lot of people could appreciate, except the old people, and I hate to do like the old person thing.
Right.
1977, Star Wars comes out. Those characters were instantly legend. Darth Vader, day one, was just, oh my God. We all know, even if you weren't around then, Star Wars was instantly legendary. Darth Vader, Obi-Wan Kenobi, the wise old guy, Luke Skywalker, the young kid dreaming, the characters were instantly legends.
Yes.
For 3 years, all you had standard stormtroopers. You didn't have all the different kinds of stormtroopers. You had the TIE fighter pilot. You got a little, it was a big deal. Those characters, the movies were so huge. The characters were so iconic. Any tiny sliver of something more was Boba Fett was one of the very first just expanded sort of characters. And he looked, just the fact that he looked badass and you knew he was a bounty hunter, we were, everyone freaked out. We had 3 long years of just these characters from the first movie. Boba Fett was one of the very first look, there's somebody else. There's another kind of guy, and he's killer looking, and he's kind of mysterious. It was very, very, very little, but at the time, it was a lot because he was a new guy. We'd never seen anybody else. We only had those core guys. So he became sort of a legend instantly and a myth because he was just another guy. We freaked out to every single extra unit when we saw snow troopers on Hoth. I was like, oh, look at that. Different kinds of stormtroopers they got the different looking helmets. Every single additional character, even if they're on screen for 2 seconds, was a big deal because we were finally getting new stuff after 3 years.
And that's the thing, like the picture I just pulled up too, we never got to see that until later. This was a deleted scene, but I mean, look at them. That's the reason why people loved it so much. And then actually we'll get into this later, but technically the first appearance was the 1978 holiday special during that you could actually see the
That's true. You actually got him technically then. Yeah.
Yeah. The Faithful Wookiee, which you can actually see on Disney Plus. They took just the animated, the animation out of that whole special and uploaded that to Disney Plus. I actually watched that last night just to, and it was really, really cool how they set that all up. But again, I actually watched something. It was a video talking about the whole Star Wars holiday special and the mess that it was and the production and everything else. And the animators, which was a Canadian animating company, or they didn't have a lot to go on. That's why the colors are all kind of off like that. But really interesting. But then you have, so going back on, everyone was saying there's not enough action and blah blah blah. So I mean, I think this happens, this scene where it looks like Fennec and him are surrounded. I think this happens after the meeting where he's right.
And I was
that
say
double
what
cross,
that is.
right?
To me, it looks like they're getting attacked by one of the syndicates. And maybe it could even be like Crimson Dawn or something. Like it's a syndicate that's like, no, we're not going for you as taken over where Jabba left off. I mean, of course, he's going to have some guys that ally themselves that say, okay, for again, like we talked about earlier in this discussion, whatever he does to garner them as allies, but some are going to say, the hell with you. We don't accept you as just stepping into where Jabba the Hutt was. You're another guy who worked
Right.
for him. So that could be one of the powerful syndicates comes in to seize control of Jabba's palace and maybe take control of all the other crime syndicates. And maybe it's the guy on the end there who's giving them crap.
That's one saying, what if we just kill you?
And maybe that's them trying to kill him right there.
So I think that's what they're saying, right? Of course, that's going to happen. The whole gangster movie, that's what's going to happen. They have their meeting. They're like, oh, this is what we're going to do. And there's always someone that's going to betray, or a whole bunch of them that are going to betray. So I don't think it's going to be easy. Like, I know that since we were kids, right? Boba Fett's the legend, right? He's infamous, notorious, everything else. But I think that he's just, he's starting to reestablish himself. Another thing people were saying is a lot of Boba Fett without his helmet on. Now, I know it's because it's Hollywood nowadays and the actors want to get FaceTime. This is how they get recognized.
They've been taking the helmets off more, and Disney Star Wars is just taking the helmets off people. They're just not in their helmets all the time.
But that's everything too. It's like the thing that always bugged me about the Spider-Man movies, like the earlier ones, even some with the new ones with Tom Holland. It's like Peter Parker would be in the middle of a fight and he'd get a break. He'd be like, take his mask off to say something, so the actor could get their FaceTime. And it's so stupid. I forget, Carl Urban playing Dredd in that movie Dredd never took the helmet off once, just like in a comic, not once. And he was awesome in that movie.
They should, I think some characters, and overall, I'm like, I get it. Okay. Like even with Kylo Ren, Kylo Ren, I thought I liked Kylo Ren actually as much as whatever we can with the sequels, but I thought the helmet was off like a little bit too much with him, but a lot of people don't agree with that, and I get it because they want the human side, and some characters I think should have it. Like not all of them, maybe not even a lot of them. Like Boba Fett was one that I don't know. It's like now you have a show that's concentrating on him. We know that he's, with the clone thing, even going all the way back to Attack of the Clones, episode 2.
Right.
So I think the mystique with him of having to have his helmet on all the time, it's already gone. Right. I hope Star Wars does leave the helmets on of some characters, even like new ones, just because it does make some of these characters shouldn't have a humanness. It should make them kind of cold and robotic. Like, I hope they do. Like Boba Fett, it might have bothered me years ago. I might have said, no, don't take the helmet off. I don't want to know.
Right.
But Attack of the Clones, we already know what all the clones look like. We know who he is, and we've seen him as a kid and everything. It's like, well, it doesn't. That sort of power with him to me is almost, it doesn't even matter. I'd hope that he would still use it though, to people that aren't as familiar, maybe with him, the audience we may be, but what if some guy, comes to challenge him and comes to face off with him at Jabba's palace? It would be cool if he just faces him with the helmet on, to be intimidating to an opposing character.
Well, there was something in this, in this scene here, right before they're surrounded, right? He drops his helmet because he was carrying looks like coins or something. Like maybe some kind of payment, like credits. Yeah. And maybe that's why he wasn't wearing the helmet for some reason. But to be devil's advocate, let's just say he's taking the helmet off more. And it's because I'm going to be devil's advocate here. He's older, wiser, doesn't need to prove much anymore. Like he doesn't have to hide behind the helmet. Plus, he was without that armor for how many years? Right. So maybe he's just like, oh, I don't need that to be me.
Right.
But ultimately it comes down to the actor wanting his face to be seen. But then we know what he looks like, right? Like you were saying, we know the whole clone thing. We know what they look like. There's no mystique anymore.
Well, no, but your point though, absolutely, especially because he states at the very beginning of the trailer they show that I'm not the bounty hunter anymore.
That's right. And that's the thing, right? Like,
so
people are
it's,
like,
it's,
what? He's not a bounty hunter. Right. He's a crime lord now.
Disassociating himself, you know, and even right there at that table with all the crime lord guys, you know, it's like, look, this isn't the Boba Fett that you knew. This is who I am now, and I'm showing my face to you. So there's all kinds of reasons in this for it, and I'm totally fine with that. I was just thinking in general though, like Star Wars, like don't take the helmet off of everybody though.
No.
Leave some characters mysterious. Like
one of the other aspects I wanted to just quickly talk about was I love
Bosk
the aliens, right?
Yeah.
Practical special effects, all the aliens, and this really excited.
Twi'leks.
Really love that. And again, it's that whole underworld thing. And I have a feeling, the actress here, is Jennifer Beals. Who,
is that actually her?
That's her.
No
Jennifer
kidding.
Beals.
I didn't realize that. That's so cool.
From the Flashdance days. And I made this joke earlier where I took the chorus from that Flashdance song Maniac and changed it up. So, and actually Paul Lee from Captain Teva from The Mandalorian, one of the X-Wing pilots, he liked that. So I was hoping it wasn't too dorky, but it's kind of a dad joke. Maybe he gets it because of that. But
yeah,
let me get back up to the picture. I really, again, I get the impression that maybe she's going to be kind of like some kind of, maybe the cantina owner, you know, a Twi'lek that has like the information he needs, or
that's a cool shot. She looks really good. Like she looks cool. She's like she looks right. Like she's the owner of that club or something. Like
that's what it totally looks like, right? And kind of the Twi'leks with their, you know, the charisma and the entertainers and stuff like that. And I just think that's what she's going to be. And she's going to be that contact. Like, I forget her name from the Bad Batch. What was her name? The contact in the bar there that they would get their jobs from. Sid.
Yeah. She's
going to be the Sid, but for Boba Fett. Right. So nicer to look at.
Right. You know who also like just kind of not just looked cool, but had a cool air. And again, it's so little to go off of, but Fennec, I liked what I saw of Fennec in this trailer too. And I know it's very little.
Right.
She looked to me, and even that's a great shot of her.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't recall if that's the exact same outfit she's had probably for Mandalorian. I know it was such little footage, but I thought she came across really cool. And again, I know it was just, you know, we got a minute and a half. She had a couple lines delivered. She had a couple little scenes. And I just had the feeling, and that's a reach because we saw such little of her. Really, it's just, you know, it's so short. But I felt like she's falling into her role more. I mean, the actress, she's falling into... I just had a good vibe. Like, she's as Fennec as ever. Like, it was just cool to see her. She looked good. She sounded good. Just the delivery. I was like, she's going to be better than ever. I had the feeling in this show. So I just thought that was cool. Yeah.
I mean, they're gonna be able to expand on her a lot more than having her as kind of the side, like more of a side character in The Mandalorian, right? Because it wasn't about her character, except for that one episode was really good, right? Where she was, you know, fighting against Mando. And who was she with? Oh, she was with that guy that was the wannabe bounty hunter.
Oh, that was great.
And, yeah,
the young guy. Yeah, when they were out. Yeah, that was great. That was a great scene.
So I just wanted... I was doing a whole bunch of Boba Fett reading and just going through the whole history of Boba Fett, right? Like we were talking about this. I just pulled down some images I thought, you know, where we've been seeing Boba Fett. And again, the first appearance, which was the faithful Wookiee. So, which is really interesting. And then, of course, the deleted scene. I think I showed this before. This is like when Lucas had re-released it with that scene. And Jabba, of course, the Clone Wars, we saw Boba Fett. And one of my favorite was the Robot Chicken stuff. All their Star Wars stuff is top notch.
So funny.
Right? So, you know, they're just
There you go.
Like,
Ta-da!
it's my favorite.
Oh,
So it's a good thing. People need to go and watch it. If you haven't seen the Robot Chicken stuff, you have
Dude, it's so funny. They pay such homage to it,
Yes.
and at the same time make it ridiculous, like funny. But yeah, it's so good because you could tell they got it nailed, and then they just play with it. Like it's so good.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts? How are people going to respond to the Book of Boba Fett? Because I watched a few streams today just to get a feel of what people are thinking, right? So of course you have the fans that are like, all Disney is garbage, and they're like all over it. Then you have the people that are like, everything Star Wars is great, and stuff. For me, my opinion, real quick, is it's going to continue on strengthening Star Wars like The Mandalorian did.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to miss a stride with The Mandalorian. And since we'll be going right back into The Mandalorian, you know, and like you said, I mean, it's easy, you know, obviously we're Star Wars nerds, we gush over a lot of it, but I think we've been critical of stuff, you know, we don't like. You know, and even a Mandalorian, like I'll say, I love it. You know, two thumbs way up. There's certain aspects of it though, even the Mandalorian that I've nitpicked a little.
Right.
The Book of Boba Fett, I think you've got such a strong foundation because you're leaping off of the Mandalorian. Like I said in the beginning of the podcast, it laid the groundwork, it laid the foundation of kind of how to do a show like this, and going to Boba Fett from another Mandalorian, it's not such a leap, you know, at all in tone. You've got Jabba's palace, you've got this huge tie to Return of the Jedi, you know, and there's all that stuff like what they hint at, the crime syndicates, Boba Fett taking over. So you're going to have a lot of callbacks to the original Star Wars. It's kind of a can't miss in a way to me. If you just continue on, you know, and who knows what surprises we get and what characters show up. Who knows what flashbacks we get, you know, as we were talking about, that fill in Boba Fett's life and story and what happened in the Sarlacc pit, which, you know, we don't know they're going to do that necessarily. But imagine this is so ripe for Boba Fett flashbacks, you know, to fill in some of the blanks with his life in any period, with any time frame of it. I don't know. And this was Robert Rodriguez, right? This was Robert Rodriguez directing.
Yeah, he's on this project. So I don't know. I'm pretty confident that you're going to be getting basically a Mandalorian level, yes,
you know, show. And even that
Desperado.
trailer. Yeah, I'm very intrigued. The trailer wasn't, like I said, I thought it was perfect because they could have went way more over the top with the trailer, and they didn't. But if you look at what tidbits we got,
right,
and I'm like, this is going to be cool. And I agree with you. I think we just saw the first episode. I think we saw what's coming on next week on The Mandalorian, sort of, except it happens to be the first one in the teaser. I think one thing, though, that I am very curious about, though, and what I'd kind of like to see is that, okay, we had the Mandalorian, and they went off and they gave the tale of it with Boba Fett sitting on Jabba's throne.
Right.
I would love to see them hand the baton off similarly, where by the end of the Book of Boba Fett's, if this is just one season or the first season, whatever,
right,
where we get a really strong tie-in to events with the Mandalorian and the larger picture,
right,
and it hands the baton right back to the Mandalorian at the very end of it,
right, right,
or whatever other shows or whatever. If Ahsoka's in the same timeline, like, what else are we gonna get? You know, what other what other stuff are we going to get from other influences, other shows, and what connections are they going to make with the ongoing Star Wars?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's the Star Wars is looking good in the future. Before we cut out, just want to remind everyone that be sure to subscribe to the channel and even share this podcast, especially if you like what we're doing. And be sure to follow us on the rest of our social media, which is Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So,
there you go. And
what do you say, Jason?
This is the way.
This is the way. Thanks, everyone. We will see you next time.
Yeah, no, good seeing everybody, man. Thank you.
I am not a bounty hunter. I've heard otherwise. I know that you sit on the throne of your former employer. Jabba ruled with fear. I intend to rule with respect.
You were all once captains under Jabba the Hutt.
I'm here to make a proposal that's mutually beneficial. Why speak of conflict when cooperation can make us all rich?
What prevents us all from killing you and taking what we want?
If you had spoken such insolence to Jabba, he'd have fed you to his menagerie.
Please, speak freely.